Hello again. Since my last video, I kind of realized I could just put the camera to a 90 degrees angle, and I had probably more of a viewer-friendly wide angle for anybody that wants to look at this video. So I'm about to start putting the engine back on, or at least preparing for putting the engine back on. But before I do that, I want to first talk a little bit about linkages on the bike. So I touched upon the ride height in the last episode, that I had taken out the shock absorber to try and see if I could adjust the ride height using with the shock on the shock absorber, but that wasn't really possible. What else can you do? Well, on many bikes there is a lowering linkage you can put on. Not so easy to find for this bike. However, this bike is like a sibling of the BMW F650 Fanduro, that must have been like the BMW marketing department on Magic Mushrooms or something. But anyway, this is like sort of a twin bike to that, and also the later model F650 GS, the single cylinder one. So some people, and on some forums, people mention that you can use the F650 Fanduro lowering linkage. There is specifically one linkage which is named quite frequently, and that is the Quaba link for the BMW. I have, however, reached out to Quaba link asking this specific question, if you could use the Quaba link for the BMW for this bike, and they say it's not possible. However, I suspect they are obliged to say that, even though the linkage might very well work. So, but anyway, what you then do is you replace this one. This is the linkage. So you want to have a linkage which is longer, elongated, which put the whole shock absorber assembly further down to the ground, and by doing that you lower the ride height. But even if you were to use the Quaba link, it's like a heck of a lot of money, like 300 euros I think. So I opted not to go for that, but a more low-tech solution, which I might come back to later on. So welcome to the other side of the bike. What I was now going to talk about is the whole linkage between the frame and the swinging arm. So I mentioned in a previous video that you could take out this axle which connects the frame, the swinging arm, and the engine. You can take that out to make room for the shock absorber when you're putting the shock back on the bike. However, I would like to stress that what you don't want to do is pull out the whole pin all the way, because then the fork comes loose from the frame altogether. As you can see, I have now pulled it out almost all the way into the swinging arm. So it's loose on this side. This is the swinging arm, this is the frame. However, since it still goes through both the frame and the swinging arm on this side, the swinging arm doesn't just fall down, which makes it quite a lot easier when I'm going to put the engine back on. So what you need to do is you pull out the pin all the way to this side, so you can fit in the engine in here. I would like to mention a few things though. On this big pin you have an ordinary washer and a spring washer, the thin one, which is like wave shaped, which goes on this side from outside of the frame. And okay, the next thing to mention is that between the frame and the swinging arm, this black thing is just like the chain, a rubber chain guard, so I'm going to put that to the side. Frame, swinging arm, and in between the frame and the swinging arm there's this black thing. It's kind of a, I guess it's nylon bushing or something. It looks like this. And what it does, I imagine, is to, well, it's kind of a thing where to minimize the friction between the frame and the swinging arm. So this is really important, I would imagine. And you can see here, it's not there on this side right now, so I need to put it in like that. Yeah. Oops. One important thing though is you can see in the swinging arm there is like this is a sleeve coming out like that. This is kind of to hold the needle bearing in place, which is in the swinging arm. There's 1 and 2 needle bearings. This sleeve goes on the inside of the needle bearing. So the sleeve needs to be put all the way in on both sides. Otherwise you cannot fit the engine in there. The sleeve goes just a little bit. It's a little bit wider than this. So you need to fit the nylon bushing outside of the sleeve. I don't know if you can see it. I'm gonna try to get it out again. So hopefully you can see the sleeve coming in. Right. So you need to put the nylon bushing on top of that, or outside of it.